Welcome to my Rapidograph technical pen cleaning messy version of the demonstration. I've got a new pen a couple weeks ago from eBay, and as you can see it's a 0.5 or 1, which is the size. It's perfect size. I used it for my Halloween pictures for the month of October, so I made 23 little drawings, and you can see that in another YouTube video. And I'm just taking it apart, and I have a lot of ink left over. I filled it just once, and I want to save that ink, so I'm putting it back into the container. One thing I can't stress enough is gloves. This ink gets everywhere. It gets on your surface. You can have pieces of it on your gloves and not realize it, and then you touch something else and you mess up your pen. You definitely need gloves. You need isopropyl alcohol, you need water, you need Q-tips or cotton swabs, you need a lot of paper towels, you need tweezers, and here is the explosion view of the Rapidograph. You need, what we're going to be cleaning is the nib, the pen body, and the ink cartridge. I usually start ink cartridge first, then I, in the meantime, soaking the nib and the body, and then I eventually take those apart. You can see my cotton swabs. Usually I start out dry, trying to wipe up the wet ink. Let's see, other things you need besides that. You're going to need the bulb cleaning kit, where it's a bulb and a little sprockety looking thing, which I think is sort of like a wrench. It fits the very end of the nib. You're also going to need the little piece. Right here, I'll have all of them labeled, though it escapes my mind right now what it's called. And mine is really old. I think I took my husband. Realize it's missing a little piece that usually goes inside of the jar. Also have a lot of containers available. I use glass because it's easier to clean. The ink really doesn't stain it very much. Plastic containers are going to stain, and I think being exposed to that high concentration alcohol will eventually affect it. I mean, you can see I have weird spots on the bulb, but that's rubber. But you can never really get all of it out. You just have to make sure to air it long enough and to rinse it with water to get everything out. But if you don't rinse it well enough, it could grow mold. So, you know, back and forth. You gotta try to pick your middle ground. And right about now, I'm wishing I had the patience to dig out my butcher tray. Sometimes they're called butcher trays. I think mine was originally used for photography, the development part. I collect the graniteware, enamelware trays, and I have a couple other versions of it in other kitchen related items. They're really good and very advantageous to have because they have those lifted sides, and it also protects your work surface, because I didn't really realize it, but isopropyl alcohol will eat through the paint of this little wooden table I'm working on, because I really get messy with this. And also with those lifted sides, you have fewer things falling off your table. Like right there, I got it on the pen. Didn't realize. Most of the time, the alcohol isn't strong enough to eat through the printing on them, but this stuff was. So maybe it's the year my pen was made. I don't know. I think this was a slightly newer version than the ones I'm normally working with. Now in my hand is essentially the pen body as well as the pen nib. And there's the little tool, and I'm taking it apart. Now the goal is usually when you pull them apart, there's a tiny little plastic cover at the very end of the weight. And that normally doesn't fall off, and it did, which could explain why it behaved a little weird towards the end I was using it. You see that blackened bit? That's probably my weight. And you have to be really careful because that wire that sits inside of it can bend really easily. So the goal with cleaning the pen body is essentially you want your cotton swabs to come out clear. And again, it takes a while to get to this point. A lot of soaking. Usually I alternate between water baths and alcohol baths, and I've used a lot of the isopropyl alcohol with the various cleanings I've been doing. You also go through a lot of paper towels. If you want to try using cloths and rags, you might have to soak them in the alcohol when you're all done if you want to use them again, because the ink, I'm not sure what's in the ink, but it dries a little shiny, like there's almost an enamel within it that makes it waterproof. And I'm going to speed some of this up, but I'm definitely getting close to getting it clean enough for myself, because inside it's threaded, and you want to get everything in the threads, because what creates a bad pen or an unsavable pen is when you have that ink and there's enough of it that makes it so it's impossible to take the nib out of the body, because the ink flows through the body, through the nib, and if you can't turn it, that means it can't flow. And here's where I find out that the printing on my pen is alcohol. See, messed it up. But I use my pens, it's okay. I'll deal with it. As you can see, some cleanup is required. This video does get pretty messy. I'm amazed that I didn't truly ruin the finish on that table. And here is the nib. The goal is not to take it apart. since it came clean and working. So now the goal is to rinse it a few more times and to get it within the bulb. And there's my little piece. That this is special because you put that either attached to the bulb. Well, you attach it to the bulb and then you take the part that isn't threaded and you put the nib end in it. So first it's threaded within the bulb and it's threaded with that little part. And I'm drawing in alcohol and that nib end screws in, and then you just squeeze it out. And really the goal is to keep repeating this until it's clear. And here it escapes out on the outside. Some of it might go through the actual nib itself, which is why you use the little clear plastic attachment. Because if you've done this right and you have put the attachment on and then you run fluid through the attachment, little tiny drops will escape through your pen tip. Pretty satisfying when you've been fighting with certain pens that just refuse to clean, or a pen that's considered ruined and you've soaked it for a couple weeks. Seeing that clear little drop really, it made me happy with some of the pens I've worked with, and it and here it is where I attach it, and it screws just in. And as you saw a little earlier, you could even see the pen weight through the little, I want to say shield, but it's not really a shield. It's kind of like a little clear cup that attaches to it. And yep, see, I spill this stuff everywhere. But I managed not to get it on the floor, which is a small victory. And this end is pretty airtight, so as you push through, very, very little liquid will escape. And now I have a clean nib. And I fought with this for a good 20 minutes. I had to keep getting up to find different parts I forgot. But there you have it. With all the parts clean, you're welcome to put the body back on the nib because it'll protect the nib, and let everything air dry. Give it at least an hour. You could rinse it in water, but I haven't seen any long-lasting effects of the alcohol. So thank you for watching my video. Bye.